I want to talk about some method acting at the beginning because I told people this was a wonderful example of method acting. So I'm going to tell some tales out of school, but I want you to tell our friends the truth. The method actors identify with the characters they're playing. So when Carroll Baker was making the film, she developed a crush on Eli Wallach. She was not nice to Carl Maldon, and she was very impatient with Mildred Dunnick.
I have known him too long, much too long.
But is that accurate?
Yes. Yes.
What did you need? Did you feel you needed to relate to the actors off screen the way you related to them in character?
Well, when you're young, that can get confusing. Now, of all those wonderful men I worked with, I was in love with Clark Gable. I was in love with Clark Gable when I was 11 years old. And one of the things I took my breath away was the way he used to hold a woman in a backbend kiss. And then I got to work with him, and he asked for me to be in the film. And when he kissed me, they had to help me off the stage.
But I knew, I had the pleasure of interviewing Carroll and Eli Wallach many times for this film. You were crazy about Eli in the real world during the making of the film and for the rest of his life.
Oh, yes, he was a dear, dear friend. I liked his wife, too.
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned from Clark Gable, because he saw how silly I was about him, and after we played the love scene and he kissed me and they helped me off the stage, he took me aside. The first time he ever took me aside by myself, and he said, "Carroll, listen, you're a young actress. I've been in this business. I know what it's all about." He said, "Never, never get a crush on your leading man. When you do a scene, you have to do it so complete, so realistic. But the minute it's over, don't dwell on it. Take a walk, make a phone call, have a cup of coffee." Oh, so I learned that from him. But actually, I think he was protecting himself more than me.
Interestingly, when I interviewed you and Eli for the film, and talking about actors' motivation for the part, your interpretation was that there really was a seduction, and that's how you play it. And so at the end of the film, Baby Doll has grown up. Can't you see the change? She's not a child anymore. She's a grown woman. But Eli surprised me by saying he didn't think there was a seduction.
Well, you know, I played it as a seduction because that was a transition from the little girl to a man that she loved. And I always thought that that's what it was, and now I agree with Eli. I think that what Tennessee was saying was the fact that this girl had no experience, and this man excited her, and she hated her husband, but she spent a long time with him, and she really fell in love with him, and that was the transition.
Whether or not there was an actual seduction, you mean?
Yes.
It was
I
the
thought
feeling
that for
she had.
years. Yeah.
The feeling she had for him
Yes.
turned her into a mature woman.
Yeah. That's what I'm starting to think.
That's what you're starting to think.
Yeah.
Everybody who's worked with Kazan said he was the greatest of all actors, directors. What was special about him as a director?
Well, he was one of the founders of the Actors Studio. I was fortunate enough to be accepted into the Actors Studio, so he knew my work. He took us on location to Benoit, Mississippi. We were there a month ahead of time, which was wonderful to get the feeling of the place. And he wanted us to meet as many locals as we could. And aside from the stars, everybody was a local from Mississippi. And we got to know them. They invited us to dinner. I got that Southern baby accent from an older woman that I met, and she did talk that way. One of the things that I wouldn't have understood if I hadn't gone to Mississippi ahead of time is I thought it was so silly to call somebody baby doll. Well, they told me one after another. One of them said, oh, my cousin, we called her baby doll. And another one said, oh, we had a pet cow, we called her baby doll.
Did Kazan take you aside? He was famous for taking actors aside and talking to you one-on-one in an intimate way about how you felt about the character. Was he good about that?
Oh, he was wonderful, yes. We had a long session, one-on-one, each actor with Kazan. And one of the things he did, for example, when he did a stage play, which was so wonderful, they never did the set until he spoke to the actors. And he said, now, with your character, what kind of a chair would you like to sit in? Where would you be most of the time? So that the whole package was integrated. And with Baby Doll, he questioned me. He said, now tell me the things that you can identify with. Tell me the things in your life that maybe coincide in some way, or in some way, how could you believe that this was true, that this is what you were going to do? And that plus 4 weeks of rehearsal was it.
Made you identify with the character.
Yeah.
And he did encourage actors to make contributions and suggestions. Didn't you, in a sense, orchestrate the wonderful ice cream eating scene?
Yes.
You remember that scene?
Yes, well, that was a marvelous thing about Kazan. He wasn't an egotist in any way, and if he needed help, he would speak out. So when we did the first scene with the old house and everything, and he scratched his head and he said to the crew, well, I don't know. He said, when we're showing this old house and everything, how in the world are the audience going to know that this is a modern film? And one of the grips said, wait until a plane goes over. Wait until a jet plane goes over. And that has become something that has been in so many films, so many people, but he loved it. He thought that's the way to do it. And then the one contribution I had, well, hopefully I had more than one, but at any rate, when Carl went to the doctor, and I was waiting in the car for him, so Kazan came over to me and he said, this is really dead. I mean, you just sitting in the car. He said, there must be something that we can do to make it livelier. And I said, well, my daddy was a traveling salesman. And I used to wait in the car for him, and he always brought me an ice cream cone. Oh, Kazan said, yes. And then he put those two wonderful little girls
behind you to make, you're having an ice cream cone just like the little kids.
Yes.
So you suggested the ice cream, but the two little girls were
yeah,
Kazan.
no, yeah. He did
Now,
this.
I was telling the audience about the steamy swing scene, and I bet nobody here knows that looks like it was very hot weather. It was filmed in freezingly cold weather. Is that right?
December, yeah.
December in Mississippi was
Yes.
cold.
Very cold.
How did you manage to suggest heat while you were actually really freezing?
I don't know what he's talking about. I really don't. I thought you were going to tell the story about Eli. How Eli kept warm.
Oh, tell them.
No, you tell them.
No.
Okay. So that was a very sensuous scene, and Kazan admitted that this was the most sensuous movie that he'd ever directed. And when the film was condemned, then people started to look for signs of what's the dirty part here, what's going here. And Eli had his hand down like this. So they said, uh-oh, where does his hand go? He was so cold, there was an electric stove there, and he had his hand.
So that's the illusion of acting. That's a lesson in acting right there.
Yes.
But you suffered for your art. You were cold.
Oh, I was freezing.
You were
yes.
freezingly cold, but you had to suggest you were the opposite.
Yes.
Because when you get up and say, and you can't quite catch your breath, that's a wonderful moment. How was Carl Maldon to work with? He has said that this is his greatest performance.
Oh, he wanted to do this film so badly. He felt that this was the top film that he would ever make. And although we weren't very good friends, thanks to me during the filming, but later on in life we became very dear friends. And when he wrote his autobiography, I traveled to some of the cities with him to sell his book.
So you were making it up to him in a way?
Yes, no, but I really admired him so much. And Richard Widmark would also come on some of these book reading tours. And Widmark said, I have a totally new career. All I'm doing is talking about Carl Maldon.
But he was worth it.
Oh, yes.
Was Tennessee Williams on the set at all?
Kazan would not allow Tennessee on the set. When I did my audition at the Actors Studio for Baby Doll, of course Tennessee was there and Kazan was there. And when the scene was over, Kazan said, wow, okay. And Tennessee said, oh, I think she's lovely. But now, I think she should gain about 20 pounds, and we'll have big rouged cheeks on her. And Kazan said, oh, come on, Tennessee, you write such bizarre characters. Let me put somebody in there, it's normal.
But once you were starting to shoot, no Tennessee Williams.
No.
And what was the reason for that?
Kazan thought that he'd have a bad influence on us. And as a matter of fact, he did Baby Doll, I think it was in Atlanta, Georgia, for a short period of time. And he did it the way he wanted it done. And it was pretty exaggerated.
He wanted a very heavy woman to play the part.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not how
No,
Kazan saw
he
it.
wanted instead of Eli Wallach, he wanted a real, bodybuilder or somebody like that.
I think this was a better version. Did you get to know Tennessee before the film was shot at all?
No, I knew him after the film.
After the film.
Yeah, we became very good friends. He was wonderful. The only time, I have to tell you this story. It's so silly. I went to see him in his apartment, and the apartment, for somebody so famous, was really kind of tatty. So I couldn't help myself. I said, Tennessee, why are you living here? He said, come outside, I'll show you. And outside on the balcony, there was this one little stream of green coming up. He said, I'm here for that vine.
When you were making the film in Benoit, was everything shot on location in that house? Was there any studio work, or was it all location?
Oh, no, the attic scene, no, that had to be built. That way, the boards that shook and everything. No,
The attic scene was built, but
Yes.
everything else was location?
Yes, everything was.
In that house?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that gave it a terrific sense of authenticity.
Oh, yes, it did indeed.
And the Boris Kaufman, the cinematographer, that's great. That wonderful, almost
Yes.
Italian neorealism. The look of the film it's almost like a foreign film in a way, the look of the film, the
Yes.
texture of the film.
Yes, and I'm sometimes asked, what was the most difficult scene for me to do? And the most difficult scene was when Carl has slapped me, and I come out to see Eli, and we sit down at the pig pen, and I'm laughing and crying at the same time. I didn't think I'd be able to do that, but I was rather happy the way it turned out.
But it was hard for you to get the laughing and crying
do
at the
both,
same
yes.
time. And then the sounds of the pig sounds in the background.
Yes, right.
Those must have been added after you shot
Yeah, and
the
I
scene.
love things like the chicken coming into the dining room. Yeah.
Now, you do have a favorite line in the film, and you're here, so we want you to do your favorite line for the audience.
Oh, I don't want to do it.
Oh, you don't want to do it?
No, because I saw it for real, and I don't think I'm as good now.
But do it anyway.
I exaggerate a little bit now. I've been to school in my life, big boy, and I am a magazine reader.
But in a film in which every line is a treasure, that is your particular favorite.
Yes, well, that and the other one that I love is Carl Maldon's line when Aunt Rose Comfort comes in with the greens, and he says to her, Aunt Rose Comfort, you've been cooking around here and cooking around there. How many years you've been cooking around people's houses? I think that's a beautiful line. Cooking around people's houses. Oh, who would say that in Tennessee?
A friend of mine loves that line and quotes it all the time. So
yeah.
it gets through to
Yeah,
people. It gets
yeah.
through. There's so many other films to talk about. Very briefly, Giant, James Dean, George Stevens, Elizabeth Taylor, Rock Hudson. You've told me you'd never sit through that one again.
Oh, no, they loved it in Texas. I've been to Dallas so many times, and that film is so long, and I don't come in until the second half. I cannot sit through that film again.
But it's a great film.
It is,
It's
yes.
a great film.
It's been called one of the best 100 best films of all time.
It is. I'd put it even higher than that. When you worked with James Dean in your scenes together, did you have any idea that he was going to remain as enduringly popular as he has? I have students, 20-year-olds, who don't know too much about film history, but you mention the name James Dean, they know that name.
I know, it's incredible. Anybody who was his age, certainly, they just identified with him so much. And for a long time, we thought it was going to be Marilyn Monroe that would be remembered forever. But Marilyn has kind of faded. Liz Taylor was so famous, and she's kind of faded. Nobody has gotten tired of James Dean. It's amazing.
He hit a nerve.
I know, yeah.
Did you like him?
Well, the thing was that he was a rather strange boy. He really was. But he wasn't strange to me because we were in the actor's studio together. So I knew Jimmy, and he was a little insecure in Giant. He made fun of Elizabeth Taylor and Rock Hudson. I was terribly impressed with them, and he was really too. So
They were movie stars, and he was actor's studio.
and he had just become famous. He was naughty with the director, with George Stevens, wouldn't show up on time and things like that. And I believe it's because he thought, I'm not being treated like a star, like I should be treated. I should be treated like them. Now, when we went to Marfa, Texas, everybody ate together there was a one street, really, and there was one hotel, and the crew and the cast and everybody ate in the hotel dining room. So in the beginning, I didn't invite Jimmy. He came over and sat with me, and we sat together, and we had, I don't know, for a week or so, we had meals together, and he would make fun of them when they came down. Well, Elizabeth was really incredible because here we were in this dusty little town. People were wearing jeans and having leather belts made and wearing boots and everything. And I never forget the first night. Elizabeth always came late for dinner. Everybody was finished eating when she came. And she and Rock came in. She had on a black chiffon gown with white ermine tails. But then there came a time when Elizabeth was very nice to Jimmy. And they started spending time together. And he never ate with me again.
Oh. What's fascinating, again, acting an illusion, you played Elizabeth Taylor's daughter, but in the real world, you were 1 year older than she was.
Oh, she loved that. She loved it.
Okay, moving ahead, I've said this before, but it's something you should know. And there's a great film from 1963 called How the West Was Won. Do you know that, in Cinerama? Yeah. Terrific film. And the ads for the film in 1963 said 24 great stars in Cinerama in How the West Was Won. Time moves on, and 23 of those stars are no longer with us. Only one of the 24 great stars is still here.
Yeah, I know.
To what do you attribute your having a nice long life?
Yes, but you know, I think one of the things as you get older that you miss most, I've lost so many people I love. It's very difficult. You know, I have some younger friends, or I say younger friends, I have somebody that's 80. But there's so many people that I miss.
And Debbie Reynolds was your best Hollywood friend?
She was my best girlfriend, and that was tragic. I couldn't believe when she went, you know.
Now, you worked with some other legendary stars. We want to hear a little bit about Bette Davis. Did you see Bette Davis in Watcher in the Woods in 1980, which is a Walt Disney film? It's a different kind of a part for you. What was your attitude toward this legendary star?
Oh, well, I mean, I loved her movies. And on the set, they always give you a chair to sit in. Now, that's very nice. Nice that they give you a chair. And Bette Davis and I were sitting next to one another. And I thought, Carroll, just behave yourself. There were so many things I wanted to ask her because it was legendary, some of the things she did. I wanted to know if she'd had an affair with Earl Flynn. And she was supposed to be so difficult, and I wanted to know all about that. I said, no, just be very polite, sit still. And the first thing she did is open up to me and tell me all about everything. Yeah, she was great.
She wasn't difficult or temperamental at all?
No. I think one of the sad things was that acting was just her whole life. And she was very upset about the book that her daughter did. And she came on the set every single day, whether she was in a scene or not. And she sat and watched everybody else act.
So it was her whole life?
Yeah, it was her whole life.
Yeah. There's no doubt that it will never happen. Carroll will never be the subject of a book called Mommy Dearest. I can tell you, because I know her two children, and they are great. She has a beautiful daughter, Blanche Baker, who's a wonderful actress, and Herschel Garfien, who's a composer. They're well-adjusted, hard-working, intelligent kids, and very devoted to you, and you to them. No Mommy Dearest here, and no scandal. It's true, right? Accurate?
Yeah.
Lovely kids. What was it like working with Arnold Schwarzenegger in Kindergarten Cop?
Oh, Arnold is like a big kid. He joked around. I mean, we went on location in his private plane. You know, even the director was in his private plane. But when we were doing a scene, the director, and I've never heard a director talk this way to a big star. He'd say, Arnold, for God's sake, sit down so we can do the scene. And you know, he was really like a big kid. So in the scene, toward the end, when I'm shooting him, and he's on the floor, I didn't know how to do that. And they kept hitting me, and I stood there, and it did hurt, but I didn't know what to do. And Arnold told me, he said, when it comes to you, then you go over like that, and then up, and then they know you've been hit. So he knew. But the thing was that I had two suits. One was larger than the other, and I had padding on all over. So Joel was our stunt director. And before I did a scene, he wanted to make sure I didn't get hurt. So he would adjust the padding, make sure that everything was in place. So about the third or fourth take, I felt this thing down my back. And I said, Joel, what are you doing? And it was Arnold.
We like to fool around.
Yeah.
Do you miss acting?
No.
Not at all?
No.
What if somebody came along with a great part for you?
Well, you know, you should never say no, because if there was a part like the older woman in Titanic, I don't think I could pass that up. But I love not having to learn lines. I love sleeping in the mornings. Oh, I love it.
Did you like being an actor? You had 50 good years.
Oh, yeah. It was hard work. It was very hard work. The thing I remember most about it, well, the good thing was the people I worked with, because they were all so special. They were really wonderful, wonderful people. I loved Jimmy Stewart. I mean, he was an angel. He was just an
Gregory
angel.
Peck, Charlton
Gregory
Heston.
Peck, Charlton Heston. Yeah, Heston and I became very good friends. We went to each other's house all the time.
I'll be naughty, George Peppard. Okay.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Okay. You've said it. But now we want to switch gears, because you're a writer too, and Carroll has written a terrific murder mystery called Who Killed Big Al, very much influenced by Agatha Christie. It's on sale tonight. She will be happy to sign it for you. I guarantee once you start it, you can't put it down, and you will not be able to guess the ending. She'll be one step ahead of you, I guarantee. Can you say a little bit about the book?
Well, it's my fourth book, so I'm not new at it. I wrote an autobiography called Baby Doll, and then I spent a long time in Africa, East Africa. I knew the whole coast and just fell in love with it. And so I wrote a book called To Africa with Love. And then I had a career in Rome, so there were a lot. It was during the time of La Dolce Vita, so it was a novel. And this Madeline, she might have been me, I don't know, but anyway. But the book, I think, is great fun. It's not conventional in any way. It's full of surprises. And I really got a lot from Agatha Christie. My detective is someone who idolizes Hercule Poirot, her detective. And some of my friends said to me, hey, wait a minute. How do you know so much about poison? I mean, poison this and poison that and poison something else. And I learned it all from Agatha Christie. She did the work, I didn't.
I think somebody said he would be afraid to have dinner at your house.
Yes, right. Well, so I hope if you get the book that you will enjoy it. And I would also like you to buy it because my children are hungry. And I'm tired of sleeping in my car.
Now, there's a character in the book that has the same first name that I do.
Yes.
And you dedicated the book to me, and I didn't deserve it. I did not deserve it.
Oh, yes, you did. He really helped me so much with the book.
This isn't ghostwritten. It's written by Carroll Baker.
How many books have you written?
But I gave you some suggestions, but you wrote the book.
How many books have you written?
It doesn't matter.
Make him tell you how many books he's written.
Doesn't matter. But
many about all, famous directors and actors and people who were important on the stage.
It's not about me. It's all about you.
He's a film historian.
Okay, no.
Yeah.
But is the butler is called Foster? Was it named after me or not?
I'm not saying.
And the butler always does it. So.
Yeah, Foster's the butler.
Okay, I think Rob, you have a special presentation.
Thanks, Foster. Well, Carroll, our last order of business tonight, the highest honor that the RiverRun International Film Festival bestows on any special guest is our Master of Cinema Award. And historically, it has only been presented to guests who visit during our film festival. But tonight, on behalf of the Board of Directors and everyone associated with RiverRun, it gives me great pleasure to give you our Master of Cinema Award.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your wonderful performances. Thank you very much for being here tonight. And we would just ask, if you don't mind, if Carol could just get to the lobby before you leave, and she's going to be right outside the front door there. So, thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you.